Hey, well, come back to my Scary Tale channel today. About this video, there are houses people whisper about, places no one wants to live in, even if they're beautiful, even if they're free. The Carter house was one of those places. It stood at the end of Oakwood Drive, a towering Victorian mansion with intricate carvings on its walls and windows like dark, watching eyes. No one had lived there for years, not since the Carter family vanished overnight. Some said they fled, others believed they never left at all. When Daniel and his wife, Claire, bought the house, they thought they were getting a great deal. It was large, affordable, and perfect for raising their son, Ben. The warnings from neighbors didn't bother them. They weren't superstitious. To them, it was just an old house with a history no one could prove. But history has a way of repeating itself. Their first night in the house was uneventful, though Claire complained about the strange drafts that made the house feel colder than it should have been. Daniel brushed it off. Old houses creak, he told her. They shift and settle. Nothing unusual. But Ben, their 5-year-old, didn't sleep well. He kept waking up, saying he heard someone whispering in his room. When Claire checked, there was nothing there, just shadows cast by the swaying trees outside. The next few days passed quietly, though an eerie feeling lingered in the air. The house was too quiet, too still. Claire began noticing odd things. A chair slightly moved from where she remembered, placing it the sound of footsteps upstairs. When she knew no one was there, she tried to ignore it. But one evening, as she was preparing dinner, she heard something that froze her in place. "Mommy!" The voice was soft, almost too quiet to hear, but she knew it wasn't Ben's. She turned sharply, knife still in hand. The kitchen was empty. The whisper came again, this time from the hallway. Heart pounding, she followed the sound, expecting to find Ben playing a trick on her. But as she turned the corner, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A shadow, too tall to be a child's, standing at the end of the hall. It vanished the moment she blinked. That night, Claire told Daniel what she saw, but he laughed it off. "You're just imagining things," he said, though his voice wasn't as confident as usual. But Ben didn't laugh. He looked up from his toys and said, "Mommy saw him too?" Claire's stomach dropped. "Saw? Who, sweetie?" "The man in the hallway." Daniel and Claire exchanged glances. "When did you see him?" Claire asked gently. Ben shrugged. "He watches me sleep." Daniel tried to convince Claire it was just a child's imagination. But Claire knew better. The next morning, she went down to the basement, a place she had avoided since moving in. It was colder than the rest of the house, the air thick with dust and something else, something sour, rotten. She found old boxes belonging to the Carter family. Most were filled with clothes and papers, but one box was different. Inside were photographs, old and faded. They showed the Carter family smiling, happy. But as Claire flipped through them, she noticed something disturbing. In every photo, hidden in the background, was a tall, shadowy figure, watching, waiting. She dropped the photos and ran upstairs. They had to leave. Now the night, things got worse. The whispers grew louder. The walls groaned, as if the house was breathing. Ben woke up screaming, saying the man was in his room. When Claire and Daniel rushed in, they found their son curled in the corner, pointing to the closet. Daniel, still trying to be the rational one, swung the door open. Nothing. Then the whisper came, right behind him. "Get out!" The lights flickered, the room filled with an unbearable cold. And then something moved, not in the closet, but the reflection in the window. The shadow was there, grinning at them. That was enough for Daniel. They grabbed their son, their keys, and ran for the front door. But the house wasn't done with them. The door wouldn't budge. It was as if something was holding it shut. The walls trembled, the chandelier above them swayed violently, and the whispers turned into screams. "You can't leave," Claire sobbed, pounding on the door. Daniel tried the windows, but they wouldn't break. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the house fell silent. The air was thick, unmoving. The whisper came one last time, right in Claire's ear. "Run!" The door swung open, and they didn't hesitate. They ran into the night, leaving everything behind. The house stood silently behind them, dark and waiting. The next morning, they returned with the police. But when they stepped inside, everything was normal. No whispers, no shaking walls, no shadowy figures. Their belongings were exactly where they had left them. It was as if nothing had happened at all, except for one thing. All the pictures on the walls, the ones of their family, had changed. They were no longer smiling, and in the background of every photo,